Hello, everybody. Welcome to our June NADP monthly member meeting. For those of you that have been around for a while and you're here, welcome back. Thank you for joining. And for anyone, if this is your first time or you are a guest, welcome. This is a meeting that we do once a month for both our NADP members as well as any guests that would like to attend and join in, so that you guests are allowed to attend once, so that you can learn more about the divorce process and specifically how to be a better divorce professional. So I'm Liz Becker, and I am the president and founder of the NADP, as well as the senior trainer of the Certified Divorce Specialist program. I see a lot of CDS on our call as well, so thank you for joining us. This is something that we started 10 years ago now, the NADP, and the whole purpose is to be able to unite legal, financial, mental health, and real estate professionals together, because it is so critical to your clients that not only are you communicating with them and with the other professionals around, but that you're learning B2B education about the process. Because it's amazing that you know your own lane and how you should be doing your own profession, but there's so much overlap when it comes to the process. And if you're not privy to the information, just little nuggets of information that happen during that overlap, then you're not going to be able to do the best job that you can for your clients. So to all of you that you are here, kudos that you are actually stepping out of that comfort zone and learning more in other areas. And also to CDS that have taken the program in reference to communication skills training, kudos to you too. Really, at the end of the day, these are all the ways that you're going to be exceptional professionals. So I just want to say thank you for being here. If you, again, haven't been here, or I'll just refresh your memory if you have, the way that these meetings work is that we always have a presenter, a B2B presentation for you, and it would fall under one of those industries as well, or something that's relatable to everybody. And you are, first of all, if everybody can just go into their thumbnail on the top on the top corner, there's little buttons, there's little dots that you can rename yourself. You can click on them. Make sure that if you are a guest, you have the word guest first before your name. And if you are a member, you have the word member first before your name. This is something that we need to have on there so that we can put you in the proper rooms, because after the presentation, we do the presentation up until 1 o'clock. And then at 1 o'clock, we're going to break out our members into breakout sessions so that you can network and connect with other NADP members across the country. Also very important nowadays. And then any of you that are guests, you're welcome to stay with me in the main room so that I can learn more about you. And if you have any questions about NADP or CDS, I'm here to answer them. So you can also, as many have been doing already, put your name and information in the chat box. We request that you don't take these and just pop them into your newsletter and spam people. We do this so that if there is someone that you see that would be a valuable connection, that go ahead and reach out to them and schedule a one-on-one. It's so important that you build these relationships. I've said this for 10 years. You can do all the networking you want, and you can have mass networking and try to have mass mailing lists. But what really matters when it comes to building your niche or building your clientele and your referral base is solid relationships. And it may take time. It takes time to invest in those relationships with fellow colleagues. It could take a year, 2 years. It doesn't matter. You just want to make sure that you're the go-to person in your profession for them. So take this time, nurture the relationships that you've built along the way and those that you meet at the NADP as well. So you'll be able to download this. It should save automatically, that chat thread on your computer at the end of the meeting. So, and of course, these meetings are recorded. So if you've missed one before, if you're an NADP member, you have access to all of our previous recordings. If you are a CDS designee and you're here also so that you can get your continuing education credits to submit them, you will be able to also see, enter the code. You'll hear a code at the end of the presentation. You'll be able to enter it to submit it. Or if you're an NADP member and a CDS, then you will be able to watch the recordings as well and submit it from there. So I think I've covered pretty much everything today. We have a very special guest who Nicole is going to properly introduce. I've known Chris for several years now. We've been in this industry for a long time. He is a wonderful, wonderful person, aside from professional. And I'm really excited that he's here today to share some really important information with you guys. So I am going to go ahead and pass it over to Nicole Fewer, our VP of operations. So Please go ahead, Nicole.
Great. Thanks, Liz. Hi, everyone. Before I introduce Chris, I'm just going to let you know that next month's MMM is a really important topic. It's how to support financial abuse victims through divorce. So please join us for that one. All right. And now I'm happy to introduce Chris Beck, who is the VP of Family Law Business Development for SoberLink Healthcare. He works with family law judges, attorneys, and healthcare professionals across the country to educate them on SoberLink's modern approach to alcohol monitoring for child custody cases. Chris and his wife, Sheila, are foster parents. The experience continues to strengthen his family values and advocacy for children. In May 2021, Chris and Sheila finalized their third adoption, which brings the total to 5 kids. Chris holds a BA in psychology from the University of California, Irvine, with an emphasis in child psychology. Chris, this is another very important topic, and we're happy to have you here today. We'll let you take it away.
All right, perfect. Well, I'm going to share my screen and we'll get into the presentation. Thank you so much, Nicole and Liz, for the introduction. I really do appreciate that. Yeah, all this gray you see in my beard is due to those 5 kids, so please ignore that. But yeah, it is a challenge, but every day I think it it's definitely a blessing at the same time. So let's get into this, but we're going to talk a little bit about alcohol and custody in cases that you may be dealing with in divorce. And a lot of people always ask me, when is alcohol monitoring necessary? So we will cover that as well. We'll go over the technology that I support, which is SoberLink, and how to adequately use that and our best practices that we have. At the end of the program, I will have a time for Q&A. So please jot down your questions and then we can kind of cover all those at one time. That'd be probably the best. But all right, well, the first thing I always like to do when I'm starting a presentation is talk a little bit about stats. It shouldn't be surprising that alcohol abuse, is one of the most common reasons for divorce. Alcohol is probably the most widely abused substance in the United States, and it's really by a big margin. I think you can add up some of the other ones and you still wouldn't get to how widely abused alcohol is. 10% of children in the United States are living with a parent who is struggling with alcohol or has a poor relationship with alcohol. And we figure this accounts for about 55,000 cases a year where alcohol monitoring should be considered for the safety of that child. So let's look on how to really implement a successful alcohol monitoring program. In 2016, we put together a panel of addiction experts to really help build a protocol around remote alcohol monitoring. The consensus paper that was published in the Journal of Addiction Medicine really has been an amazing resource to educate parties like yourself and professionals like yourself. This document actually talks about test frequency, duration of a program that you should think about, test windows, and the common question of should we do random testing or scheduled testing. So when we look at this paper that was published, test frequency came up first, and it talks about 2 to 4 tests per day is really what we should be focusing on when we're considering alcohol monitoring on a daily basis. When we get to 5 tests, that's when people start thinking that they're weaponizing the technology of alcohol monitoring. So keep that in mind. 1 test, that just wouldn't even be worth it in my mind. Because you could drink around that all day. But when you go from 2 tests to 4, that's where we see all of our programs that we take in. The panel agreed that alcohol monitoring should be used for a minimum of 1 year. That's where they see a cognitive change in behavior in the individual going forward. And this is something where after that 1 year period, you're less likely to relapse when you have that reinforcement of all that positive behavior of compliant tests coming through. The panel also agreed that 2-hour test windows was the right amount of time to give someone to submit their tests. This is given the fact that the client will be using our system for an extended period of time. So we don't want that to interrupt their daily life. So giving them this 2-hour windows is super important to making sure that you can have long-term success with those monitor clients that are agreeing to do alcohol monitoring. So the group also talked about random versus scheduled testing. I think this is important too, because when we look at alcohol monitoring back in the day, it was all done through labs. And the only way to adequately do this process was through random testing. You would call into a monitoring system, the phone would ring, and if it was your time to test, you had to go down to a lab and submit either a urine test or a blood test, depending on whatever the order stated. But with real-time alcohol monitoring using a breathalyzer, that does not need to happen. You can actually be extremely successful in testing based on a schedule. So the group decided that scheduled testing is the best way to implement alcohol monitoring using such technology. In addition to that article in the Journal of Addiction Medicine, the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges, they go by the NCJ, FCJ, they're really on the forefront of improving national policy in the family law arena. They built an alcohol use or an AUD bench card, and this was published in 2021. And this document highlighted the disease of alcohol use disorder and really wanted to make sure that we got across the point that AUD, alcohol use disorder, is not a moral failing. And that's really the most important thing that this document really wanted to explain, because a lot of judges or professionals out there were like, well, if you want to see your kid, just stop drinking. But it being a mental disorder, it is just not that easy. So it goes on to suggest what are some of the best executions to have the best parenting plan going forward. So it does list out different risk levels in this document. So when you open up this bench card, it will say, okay, there's mild, medium, and high risk. And what should we be thinking about in all of these things? So low risk would be kind of like the hearsay. There's a lot of accusations that alcohol abuse is part of the equation, and the child might be at some problematic risk. Medium risk would be where the client has evidence of alcohol abuse in the past, probably in treatment or has gone through treatment in the past, but they're aware of it and they're trying to get to that next level of sobriety. While high risk clients are usually in denial. Those are the hardest cases that you're going to face, because they're just not ready. They're not ready to make that commitment to sobriety or that commitment to bringing on a technology that will help them through the process. So the last part of this really goes through, well, where do we support the clients? And so I think it gives you a good understanding of where to start. Like in the far extreme of this document is someone that's been drinking heavily for a long period of time. And maybe the best thing for that person is to get to clinical detox, do an inpatient detox with that individual so they get back to some type of stabilization. And then we can start thinking about what are the next steps. Maybe there's inpatient treatment and then some alcohol monitoring that would be supplemented at that time. So a great resource that I think all professionals can use. It even goes into saying, okay, well, if you're going to end with remote alcohol monitoring at any of these, cases, what are some of the technologies that are necessary to ensure the chain of custody and make sure that the results that you get are going to be admissible? And it talks about that as well. Things like facial recognition technology to confirm identity of the individual, tamper detection, so you know that each and every test is a test from that individual and it has not been tampered from an artificial air source, and those types of things that we see all the time. So when we think about SoberLink and how we can actually use the technology, I'll give you a little history. We've been around since 2011. We started in the criminal justice side of the business where, we were using our technology for probation and DUI. But really, our system is designed around sharing BAC results with concerned parties. Our system is supported with that facial recognition technology that I talked a little bit about. And that ensures that it's the right person actually taking the test, and tamper detection so that it can't be cheated. This all results in court admissible reporting, and we call that reporting advanced reporting. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But let's look at the different device options that SoberLink offers. So we offer two different devices. We offer a SoberLink cellular device and then also a SoberLink Connect device. Very similar devices. The only difference between the two devices is how they transmit the information to our secure web portal. The SoberLink cellular device, it's our newest device. We just released it this year. It's significantly smaller than our original cellular device. So now they're pretty much the same size. It's got a longer battery life. It has global coverage, so it can be used anywhere. And its unique feature is that it's an all-in-one device. It does not require any type of pairing with a cell phone. We call it the plug-and-play device because it has a cell chip built inside the breathalyzer, so that the client, doesn't need to pair it with their cell phone. They just turn it on, submit a test, and they're ready to go. The main benefit of using the SoberLink Connect cellular device is that you can actually store devices up to 65 tests with this particular device. So let's say you're out in the woods, maybe camping, or you're out on a fishing trip out at sea, and you don't have cell coverage. You can take up to 65 tests while you're gone. And then as soon as you come back into cell coverage, all 65 of those tests will be sent to our secure web portal and time-stamped on when they were actually taken, and then uploaded on the report as tests that were taken, with all timestamps being put on there. Excuse me. Our Connect device is the Bluetooth device. It requires that you pair it with an iPhone or an Android phone, and you can download the Connect app, on the App Store or the Google Store, and it is a free app that you can download. But to submit a test, you turn on that app on your phone and then pair it with the device, submit the test, and then it's uploaded to our secure web portal through the phone. The phone has to have either a cell signal or a Wi-Fi signal for the test to be submitted. That's the only requirement. But it's kind of nice because if you don't have cell reception with your phone, maybe you just have Wi-Fi connection, you can still submit a test and have it go through in real time. As mentioned earlier, one of our biggest technologies that I always tout is our facial recognition software. Super important that we identify the individual with each and every test that is taken. If the person blocks the camera with their thumb or something, and there's no photo of the individual, the person will be prompted to retest immediately. All right. But along with facial recognition software, we also invest heavily in other technologies to help solidify that it is a real breath test. So we have other tamper detection technologies that are really powerful, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So, since we've been around in the days of 2011, when, in the criminal side, we really saw a lot of tampers, and even in family law, it's part of alcohol monitoring. It happens all the time. People are trying to get to their next drink because, again, it's a mental disorder, and we need to understand it, and we need to treat it like that. So tamper detection technology is extremely important, and it's probably one of the most overlooked features when comparing other companies, especially some of the low-cost competitors that are out there with SoberLink. So be aware of that. But this is an example of an individual that is part of our compliance team, and he is demonstrating a common tamper that we see. And if you look at the picture on the right, you'll see a yellow tube coming over his right shoulder, and that yellow tube is attached to an air compressor, and he's using compressed air to fake his breath test. So it looks like he's submitting a test, but because of our tamper detection technology, we can our algorithms will actually look at all of that and say, hey, there's been an outside source that is actually taking the breath test or delivering the air to our device. So inside our device, we have temperature sensors and we have pressure sensors. And that's really important to understand and know that, you know, individuals can't use fake air sources and get away with it. What's going to happen is that it's going to flag that particular test as a tamper. All right. And as soon as our algorithms see it as a tamper, what will happen is that that individual will be sent a letter saying that we detected a tamper and we need you to sign off on it. And then all the individuals that are part of the monitoring agreement will be notified that the client has tampered. On the first tamper, the monitor client has to sign, you know, that they acknowledge that they tampered. On the second tamper that we find with that individual, they will be suspended for 24 hours. On the third tamper, they will be suspended for 15 days. So we take tampering seriously, and we want to make sure that the individuals that are part of the monitoring agreement are notified and that they are given adequate time to maybe think about some alternatives. Because if you're on your third tamper, there's probably going to need some more intervention. Maybe interventions from an inpatient treatment or maybe even outpatient treatment. And this just gives you time to implement that. So that's why we have those tamper protocols in place. Excuse me. So one thing I do want to mention is that low-cost competitors that are out there, they have what we call an open system. So they can be cheated by having another person actually blow into the device or use external air sources like sober buddies to really cheat the systems. So in this photo, what you're seeing is a one of our competitors where the individual is taping themselves taking a test. So it's kind of like a selfie. They're looking at themselves taking a test, and that selfie is sent to the concerned parties and saying, hey, look, I took a test and this is what it was. But what can easily happen is that a sober buddy can be taking a test on the other side of the camera. So it might be confirming that the individual was there, but it's not confirming that the actual breathalyzer that is in their mouth is the breathalyzer that's being recorded and the information being sent. So the information is coming from their sober buddy that they're having a BAC of 0.000, and the picture is that of the monitor client. So these systems get easily cheated, and it happens all the time. You know, we make sure that, you know, 15 years that we've been doing this, we understand that this is part of the daily process. Tampering is going to happen, expect it. This is just part of what we do and what we try to prevent. So another thing that I love to tout about our system is our retest cycle, because when I first got into this, everyone's like, well, you're using a breathalyzer to do alcohol monitoring. Isn't there false positives? I hear about false positives all the time, you know, and yeah, well, let's address that. Anytime that we have a positive test, okay, we consider that a screening test. And our system will actually schedule up to 6 retests or until the client tests compliant, meaning that really no alcohol is detected. And this is important. This is an important SoberLink testing protocol that really gets overlooked and doesn't really get explained all that time to the people that gets on our system, even though it's in our monitoring agreement. But, you know, I think it's worth talking a little bit more about. So let me bring out some examples of 2 different examples of how this testing protocol works. All right, so in the example that you see on the screen, the monitor client actually took a test early on and had a BAC of 0.043. But this happened to be a result of using Listerine before work. So what we do is we call this an incidental exposure to alcohol. The client would receive a prompt, okay, on their app or on the SoberLink cellular device that says, hey, you have been required to take a retest in 15 minutes. All right. So the first test is seen as a screening test, and then they have to confirm that initial positive in 15 minutes later. So in 15 minutes later, they would take a test, and if it is compliant, no one will ever see that initial positive. So that's how we look at what was usually called false positives, but we call them incidental exposures to alcohol. So our retesting really helps mitigate concerns from incidental exposures to alcohol by viewing the first positive test as a screening test and then scheduling confirmation tests to actually further validate it. All right. So on the flip side, all right, let's say someone was actually drinking from their evening test to their morning test. They would test in the morning, they would get a positive on their first test, and then after the 15 minutes, they retest and they test positive again. Then we know it's not mouthwash that was actually doing this test. If you look at the research that's out there, mouthwash will actually dissipate from your mouth in 2 to 3 minutes. So 15 minutes is plenty of time. We even ask the client to rinse their mouth with water. We just don't want any of that to be part of the test. We're taking a deep lung breath test. And when we do that, we want to make sure that, that's all we're reading. Nothing that could be contaminating it in the mouth cavity. So what you see here on the screen, they took the initial test, it was positive. The confirmation test was positive, and then they had to take up to 5 more tests until they actually tested compliant on that 6th test at 8:23. And that's when their retest cycle stopped. And this is all reported on what we call advanced reporting. All right. It's our summary of all the data that we have. So the advanced reporting gives you a summary at the very top of the report, and it says how many tests were compliant, how many tests were non-compliant, and how many tests were missed. And then it gives you a month-by-month breakout. All right. We also deliver these reports in a daily format. So this individual took 3 tests and they were all compliant. Great. Get that in the morning. We also have a weekly test that will give you a weekly analysis of what's happening. And then my favorite, this test here, which is a monthly test where I can see all the data at my fingertips here from a monthly standpoint. And you actually can flip through all the prior months to look at the data as well. Any positive test that is listed on the advanced reporting will then be reported at the bottom of the month in which that test happened. And then you'll see the retest cycle with BACs listed anytime there was a positive test. So you can see there at the bottom, I highlighted it in the circle on the left-hand side of the screen. That was a positive test that happened Monday at 10:31. And you can see all the subsequent tests that were taken and the BACs that were happening. And we like to get these data points because we want to make sure that we're seeing the alcohol eliminating from that person, during those tests. Let's talk a little bit about our programs that we offer. This is important too, because a lot of times we will litigate and we put together what we think is a great program for monitoring. And then we go to SoberLink and there's 2 programs and we're like, well, how does what we put together and agreed upon fit within SoberLink's offering? And I'm always here to be used as a resource. So if there's ever a resource need, please reach out to me directly. But we offer 2 different programs. We offer a level 1 program, which is designed around parenting time only, and a level 2 program, which we call daily testing, which someone is testing on a schedule 7 days a week. So level 1 is designed for flexibility for parenting time only, because I know it best. Parenting time are really, really dynamic. Okay. Kids programs change all the time. Soccer practice might change because of the weather. Who knows? But, it's one of those things where we got to keep it dynamic. You can manage the actual tool you can actually manage the testing times on tools like Our Family Wizard or even your Microsoft Outlook calendar if needed. But, those are some of the things people have used, and it's actually not a bad idea. But I want to mention that level 1 is limited to 20 testing days on a calendar month. And that's important to note. So you can't exceed 20 days. So on that 21st day, you'll actually be charged a $15 overage fee. It's not a lot, but again, you want to be mindful of that. It fits probably 98% of the non-custodial parenting time that I see. But again, I just wanted to mention that In 2025, this year, we do have a premium level 1 plan where you can test every single day in a month and you won't be charged an overage. So please note that. Our level 2 or daily testing is managed by the SoberLink system. The client receives a text message when their test window opens and then continues to receive reminders to test throughout the testing window, okay, until they actually complete that test. All missed tests are documented in level 2 on our advanced reporting, and there will be a yellow dot anytime there's a missed test. All right. So with this overview of our 2 family law programs, let's review a common question that I always get, and it really is, what is the best practices for level 2 monitoring, okay? What are the testing times that you see being most successful? So we've been doing this for a while, 15 years now, and this is what has been the most successful. This is where we see the testing times being most successful. And it's a 5 a.m. test, a 1 p.m. test, and a 9 p.m. test. And really what this does is it limits the window of opportunity between the evening test and the morning test to 10 hours, okay? 8 to 10 hours, that's where the sweet spot is. That's where you want to be with the evening to morning test. So you can move this out maybe an hour where maybe it's a 6 a.m. test, a 2 p.m. test, and a 10 p.m. test. That's up to you. I am a morning person lately, having to get my kids to school so early. The bus leaves at 6:40 and I need to make up at 5 just to get everything ready to go. So this would work for me, but when it comes summertime, I'm going to move it out an hour when I don't have to have that bus schedule anymore. And those are things that can happen and we can do with our program. But remember, the hours, the testing windows are 2 hours. So the 5 a.m. test, your actual window opens at 4:45 and closes at 7 a.m. So we open the window 15 minutes before the actual scheduled test time. And then you have 2 hours after that to then comply. All right. So it's a 2 hour and 15 minutes in totality. But again, we're sticking with the best practices where at least we give the monitor client 2 hours to actually complete that test. One thing that I see in level 2 all the time is that people allow like 15 to almost 18 hours in between tests. And that's just too much time to allow individuals to have in between testing times. Okay. Level 1, again, just remember, same type of strategies. What I always suggest is how long does it take that individual, that's the monitor client, to get from house to the pickup or the exchange of the child. That's how I kind of judge when to take that first test around parenting time only. And then the next test is, during the parenting time, maybe it's every 4 hours, or if there is an overnight, make sure that you don't exceed that 10 hours that we spoke about earlier on level 2. Same for level 1, all right? But the most significant, test before, test during, and then test after. But again, if there's an overnight, make sure you schedule that evening test and that morning test don't exceed that 10 hours. One thing that we're really proud of is that, we put together an agreement for both the monitor client and the concerned party to sign. And this really just gives everyone expectations of what the program is all about. It gives the monitor client information about testing protocols. Don't eat, drink, smoke, vape 20 minutes prior to taking your test. That's just what's detailed in this agreement. But it also gives the concerned party an understanding of what's going to happen throughout the testing. So we require signatures on our SoberLink agreement. And I do want to note that the designated concerned party is super important. And not other programs don't have this, but we want to make sure that the programs don't change during the actual, let's say someone has to use it for 6 months or a year. The designated concerned party is the individual that has to sign off on any change that happens to the monitoring program. So very important person in this. Typically it is the co-parent, but I do see often that it maybe is a GAL or a mental health professional. So just to know, designated concerned party is really important person in the execution of the program. And they also are getting real-time results of each and every test. So 60 seconds after that individual takes a test, they'll be getting those results. Our customer service team is really top notch. We have both a customer service team for family law and our compliance team for family law. So super important to note that if you ever have questions about testing that has happened, maybe there's a positive test by a client of yours and you want a little more information or to better understand, how the BACs look and whatnot, you can reach out to our compliance team, and you can reach them at compliance@soberlink.com, and they'll answer all your questions. They only answer through email because they want to document all of the questions. If the question is really about maybe testimonies or some other things, they might reach out and call you specifically, but they want to make sure they document each and every correspondence because they do get a lot of requests. They also will do certified records for you. That's really important, and they'll accompany it with a signed affidavit from our custodian of records, so they can send that out with that attachment. No problem. You can ask for that at any time. The other thing we do is testimonies. Testimonies are great. If you ever have a judge that maybe just wants more information about SoberLink, you can reach out to me and I will actually get on a call with them, or I can actually testify telephonically and talk about our system and how it works. But if it's information about, a particular event that has happened, a positive event in court, then you'll have to go through our compliance team and they will have to schedule time for you. As you can see, people try and tamper all the time with our device. I can't overstress how important it is to have a technology that has tamper detection. The last 12 months, we've almost had 300 tampers confirmed, and it's just a lot. People really want to get to their next drink, and it just speaks to the power of the disease of alcohol use disorder. In a perfect world, each and every parenting plan that's created will match our level 1 or our level 2 program. We can put you in this box, but I know that's not always the case. But I do want to talk about some of the top 5 mistakes that we do see or things that we can't do. And one thing is changing the BAC threshold. In the criminal side of the business, so in DUI and probation, they insist that your BAC threshold be at 0.02. All right, that's when you start to first feel any type of, compromise from the alcohol being introduced to your body, right? Whether you lose a little bit of balance or you start to slur a little bit, that's kind of when that starts to take place. So a lot of people are saying, well, I don't want to see anything until 0.02. Well, that's not our system. We are a zero tolerance system, and we will give a positive test anything above 0.005. So 0.006 and above is a positive test for the SoberLink system. And that's really because, there's a lot of time in between tests, and we want to make sure we catch even low level positives. The next one would be requesting a shorter window of time. We talked about those 2-hour and 15-minute windows. Again, there is one thing that we do offer, and I only talk about it in this training, and it's off menu. We will offer a 1-hour testing window. So please note that. You can jot it down. It has to be requested after the parties get activated. So after they activate, they can then submit a change request form for a 1-hour window. So that 1-hour window will be 1 hour and 15 minutes. And these are really reserved for high-risk cases or cases with really young kiddos. So keep that in mind. Requesting random testing, we don't do that. We stick to what our professionals recommended, which was scheduled testing. So scheduled testing is what we always preach. And if someone wants to do random testing, maybe our technology isn't the right technology for them. Too many testing hours, too many hours in between testing times. I've kind of talked about that at length, so I don't want to talk about it too much more, but 8 to 10 hours, that's what I would always recommend. Don't exceed that. And then the last one is on that list is making sure that you're part of the monitoring agreement. If you're part of the monitoring agreement as a professional, then you can have access to any of the results at any time. there's nothing worse than having to subpoena the records from us. It's not a pretty process. It's time, it takes a lot of time, and it's just a lot easier. Just up front, your client puts you on the monitoring agreement, lists you as a contact. Therefore, you can call or talk to me at any time about program as a whole. Okay. Super important there. Getting started with a client, really easy. All you need to do is just go to our website, top right navigation. There's a get started button. It's blue. You click through that, and then what it does, it just brings you through the process of how to get started. Which level do you want, level 1 or level 2? Which plan within the level do you want, basic, plus, and premium? And really the difference between those plans, I make it really simple, is that basic means that these two people, the monitor client concerned party, are the only two parties, and the concerned party gets the data the next day, so it's not real time. But in the plus and premium, it's all real time. I'll get results in 30 to 60 seconds after the monitor client gets results. And in the plus plan, those results are delivered email format. And in the premium, it's delivered to you in email and text message format. All right. Really good to know kind of the high level part of what the difference is between those plans. When it comes to helpful documents, go to our website. We have an attorney section for professionals. Anyone that, mental health professionals or attorneys can come here and look at all the different resources that we have, from white papers to best practice papers. And one thing that I really like is our order of language that we have. Really something that professionals use often. They'll download this in a Word document and then change it up to actually meet their needs. Okay, so something that we have readily available on our website. One of the things that I'm proud of is our low bono program that we offer, because not everyone can afford our system. We know that, but we want to make sure that we offer it to everyone. So if your client does meet indigent status, we will offer our device for $1, and then we'll offer level 1 for $50 a month and level 2 for $80 a month. So we try and make it more affordable for those individuals. And the qualifications, everyone asks me, well, how do these people qualify? They qualify for indigent status in the county in which the case is taking place. That qualifies automatically. If you are representing them pro bono, you just write a letter saying that's what we're doing. Or if they're on a sliding scale, we'll also consider that as a way to qualify. And maybe they've lost their job, and you write a letter to us that says, hey, this client just lost their job. They're unable to pay bills right now. They need assistance. So those types of things are what we consider as meeting eligibility, excuse me. So something to think about. Lastly, for viewing this, and if you want to be listed on our attorney finder, I really call it a professional finder. So it's not just for attorneys, it's for mental health providers or anyone that's part of the divorce process. And you want to be part of this. We get a lot of hits to our website. It's crazy how many people come to us first. I'm like, it seems awkward. They should be going to an attorney first, but they come to us first looking for attorneys that are well versed in our system, so that they can make sure that alcohol is not going to be part of a real issue in their case. They want to be proactive. So we do get a lot of clients that come to us, and instead of referring a particular attorney or a mental health professional, I'd rather them just go to this and look for people who have been trained and gone through this. So since you have gone through this program, you can email me and say, hey, I want to be added to your professional finder, and I will add you guys, no problem. All right. And if I think Lisa will have my contact information, but if you don't have it, this is it. You can reach me at cbeck@soberlink.com. It's really easy to get hold of me. Cell phone is even better. I know it's a 714. I think that's a California area code, but I am in North Carolina on the Eastern Standard Time, so just note that. But this is where I like to open it up, with about 10 minutes left here, just for any questions that you may have regarding SoberLink or what our offering is, or maybe you have a case that you're just trying to figure out what would be the best way to kind of put the program together. So ask away. Or maybe there's going to be no.
Great. Yeah, no, thank you so much, Chris. Maybe you want to, hopefully everybody's gotten your contact information. Everybody can screenshot it if you need it. And
I, if there's no questions, first of all, thank you, Chris, so much for all that information. You know, it's really important because many of us as professionals, depending on what industry you're in, don't have access to understanding what tools are really valuable for the clients. And you may sometimes feel uncomfortable in recommending something, or, you know, at least even giving some education to your client. But this is such an important topic and such an important product to be able to give, and especially during these times. And I want to ask you, Chris, some questions, and maybe everybody can chime in, or if you have any stories of any challenges that you've had with clients and alcohol, we can use this time to discuss that as well. But let me ask you this, Chris, do you notice a rise, like with the times, the stress, fight economically, you know, everything going on in the country? Have you guys noticed a rise in people divorcing with alcohol problems and using and needing the service?
So it's a great question, Liz, and we did see a huge rise during COVID. That was just a time when I couldn't believe, you know, how much more need there was for a system like SoberLink, you know, but I will say that it's continuing even after COVID. You know, there was a time when people had to spend more time together, so that there was more divorces, and divorces started to rise. But, you know, I think what happens is that you have your natural monitoring system in place, being your significant other. And then when that significant other is no longer there, it's difficult to understand where, you know, who's going to stop me from drinking more. And sometimes it takes a little bit of training. You know, we get a lot of cases around hearsay, around like, hey, there's a lot of hearsay of this person has a drinking problem. It's because I was their monitor, but now I'm gone and I'm afraid. So they're on our system for 6 months just to prove that they can do it on their own. And that's really what maybe earns trust back with that other individual. And I think that's extremely important to note, is that it takes a little bit of effort, and it's not a huge inconvenience when you have something that's as portable as SoberLink and you can do it discreetly. I think that's huge. You know, you're not walking around with a ankle bracelet on your ankle that's monitoring your alcohol intake. You're doing something that's discreet. You can do it away from the kiddo, so they don't even know it's happening. But you're trying to, you know, earn that trust back that might have been lost during the relationship that you had with your significant other. So,
Sure,
yeah,
sure.
yeah, have seen a little bit of a rise, and now with some economic things happening, yeah, we're starting to see a little uptick as
Maybe
well.
more.
Yeah.
Sure. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thanks, Chris. I see Christine has a question. If
Well,
Christine, you want to?
I'm an attorney. I handle divorces down in San Antonio and in Frisco, which is really Dallas. And I will tell you that the judges order SoberLink all the time. We do have issues with the person who is supposed to be blowing, so to speak, trying to game the system. Like they'll want to do it at 5 or 6 in the afternoon, and then 8 or 9 in the morning, which
Yeah.
gives them a good 12 hours to be drunk every night. And what we do here, and I've had great luck with this, is that I get an order from the judge ordering SoberLink, and the person who's doing the blowing has to pay for it. But I also get the judge to order that if you miss a test, a missed test is also a failed test. So if you don't take it, and you'd be shocked how many times they just don't do it because they know they're going to fail it, flunk it, or whatever you want to call it. And I've had great luck in judges saying, okay, you missed a test, that's a failed test. And I'm telling you, you get that weekly report, blow those up on a big board in the courtroom when you're in there doing your custody discussions with the courts. It's very effective. Shows very clearly if the parent has a drinking problem. We also have the courts have significant others. If there's a significant other of the person who's blowing. And that person's going to be around the children when they're having visitation with their parent. The judges are very good about ordering that the significant other also has to blow. And I don't know, say blow, is that the right term? I don't know if that's the right term.
You
But
say blow.
we call it blowing, and everybody thinks, well, I'm gonna blow. So we've had really good luck with it, because you could sit there all day long and say they're drinking, but without some kind of backup, say a SoberLink chart. They send you these little charts, which are green, red, and yellow, I guess, are the little circles, because
Yeah.
you were showing some a minute ago. And it's very effective in the courtroom. The judges just go, okay, done. So just toss that out. We use it a lot
A
here in
lot
Texas.
better to have actual data that you
Yes.
can trust, that's admissible, than an anecdotal type feedback. Oh, I haven't been drinking, so
Right.
it's
Right.
really nice to have.
And to, before you ever start, get a judge to order that a missed test is a failed test. So if you miss it, that's the same as if you failed it. And you got to get those hours correct as to, I've got one right now, and the lady said, well, we all go to bed at 6. And the judge said, fine, do it at 6. Then you can do it at 3 or 4. She said, oh, we don't get up till 9 or 10 in the morning. And the judge was like, really?
Wow.
A lot of sleep.
Yeah, I was pretty funny. She said, and that judge picked
Wow.
up on it right away. Well, in other words, you're saying you could drink, because it's an hour and 90 minutes to a 2-hour look back. So they could drink from 6 until 6, blow at 6 at night and 8 in the morning, and then have 12 hours to drink.
Wow. Yeah, that would
Alcohol
be a tough
isn't,
one for me to understand.
yeah, well, no, the judge didn't allow it.
Yeah.
But it's very
Right.
effective. It's a great program. It is not expensive. All things considered, it's not expensive. So anyway,
Yeah.
just a little, I guess, a little pitch for SoberLink. It works.
Hey, thanks so much for that. We really
Thank
appreciate
you.
that. Yes.
Yeah. Was there anybody else that had any questions or comments? Maybe if you've had an experience with a client with alcohol abuse, feel free to share. Give it a second to see if anybody has anything to share. Well, I think you covered it all. Oh, wait, Melissa, you wanted to share something?
Gonna say, I really wish that I had known about this 15 years ago when I was divorcing my extremely alcoholic ex. So I think this is a wonderful service, not just for parents, but for people who are verbally abused and physically abused from the use of alcohol. Thank you for doing what you do. Thank you.
No, thank you, Melissa, for that. I don't talk about it much, but there is use with our product when, kids are not part of the equation. Absolutely. I mean, we see parents being proactive in the divorce process where maybe they were considering divorce because alcohol is the biggest issue. And what happens is they get on our system, and then now they're like, okay, well, I have a way to understand the use patterns, understand how to help my significant other. And now we're getting to a point where divorce isn't in the conversation anymore. And that's been really a nice little thing for us. But I don't talk about it a lot typically when I'm talking to divorce professionals, but yes.
Yeah, that goes hand in hand. I mean, there's a lot of, alcoholism, domestic violence, but, there's just so much. It's a complex, spider web of different aspects and outcomes. So whatever tools that there is, and that's again, exact example of why we have the NADP to bring all of these professionals together, because there will be impacts when you're dealing with one of the spouses having a problem with alcohol. There will be an impact on all 4 areas: the legal, the financial, the mental health, and the residential, right? In handling situations of the home. So all of that will tie in with these problems. So thank you, Chris, so much for sharing your information. We rarely have people on our monthly member meetings that are actually sharing about their products, but we really feel like this is such an important product for you guys to know during these times. So we brought it to you and hope you appreciate it. And if you need it for your clients, now you know how to recommend it, what it's about, and you can always reach out to Chris directly.
Yeah. Thanks, Liz. Thanks for having me.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Chris.
Well, now, first of all, the code for the CE code is going to be in the chat box, and let me just pull it up. Cybele, can you pop it in the chat box so we can read it out, please? So that you guys can put it in. And then once we have that, we are going to go ahead and go into our breakout sessions. Okay, here we go. The code is actually monitor, like the word monitor, MMM25. So that's MONITOR, MMM25. And what we are going to do now in our breakouts, as we have every month a little theme, we are going to do, since in honor of Mother's Day last week, and happy belated Mother's Day to all the amazing moms and anybody that acts like a mom or is in a nurturing role, which I guess all of us are at somehow or at some point. Why don't you add to your introduction something that you've learned from your mother or a motherly figure in your life. So you're going to share your name, where you're from, what your profession is, and then add that in. And once you break out into the rooms, once you finish, you can just leave the meeting from there. If there are any guests that are on the call, you are welcome to stay in here with me in this main room so I can get to know you. Chris, you're welcome to join in the other groups, or if you have to go, totally up to you.
Thank you so much. I do have to pick up one of my kids from school, but thank you
One
so
of your
much.
5 kids.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well,
At the end of the year, like
really
these
love
half
you.
days are killing me. Yeah.
I can imagine. I can imagine. Well, it was great having you. Great to see you all. Please make sure you put in the calendar for next month. 3rd Tuesdays of every month. Should be here. Great opportunities to learn and network. And